How's it going, everybody? Today's dissected video is going to be on World of Warcraft. If you're not familiar with my dissected videos, we take a look at 3D models from characters, props, and environment pieces so we can analyze them and see what the big guys are doing, both AAA and indie alike. Now, in today's video, we're not going to have a gameplay section because I have not played WoW. And you may be asking, why am I doing a dissected video on a game that I haven't played? That is because I love the art style that Blizzard does, and there's a lot to learn from the art that WoW does. So let's get started. Well, the reason why I have not played WoW is, well, one, I was born in this country, and by the time that I was finishing high school is when WoW came out. There was a coin exchange control. That's how they called it. Where you cannot freely exchange our local currency to dollars. You had to justify to the government the purchases that you were making, so they will allow you to purchase dollars. So there's no way that I was going to be paying for a game subscription. And now that I'm older, and when I say I haven't played WoW, I mean I've never really gotten into it. I've played it to level 15, and that's it, the free part. And the reason is I don't like subscribing to video games. I've never paid a subscription for a video game. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how Blizzard got people to think paying a subscription for a video game it was a good thing. And it's not because of servers, because there are other MMOs where you just buy the game and that's it. You play it and you just buy updates. You don't subscribe to it. Again, it doesn't make sense to me. If it makes sense to you, that's fine. Now let's move on to the models. So here we have some things that caught my attention. We have the human, female, male blood elf, the human male with all the armor that I can find. I know this is not a complete set, and an orc. Now, one thing you can see right off the bat is the very different in silhouette of all the characters. You got the male, the female. The blood elf is different. The orc is really different from everything else. If you want to see the other playable characters, just let me know and I'll add those to the other video. But yeah, you can see that silhouette-wise, they're very different. The other thing that caught my eye is the fact that WoW has no normal maps. At least for the most part, I didn't notice any normal maps. When I was looking through getting the textures, I had to really dig in and I couldn't find any normal maps. And this is what you get, which I think is pretty cool because everything is hand painted. I've heard some people say, well, hand painted assets shouldn't have normal maps. Some people say, yeah, it's fine if hand painted assets have normal maps. So I guess it depends on your school of thought. But overall, WoW doesn't have normal maps, at least on their characters. And you can see that everything she has on her is painted straight on the character. It's not geometry. It isn't normal map. It's just painted. And that is pretty cool. I actually like this kind of art style. You can see that the light is painted. All the highlights and the shadows are also painted on top of the character. Same thing with these two. And even when you have armor on your character, it is literally a change of skin. You don't have any other mesh on top of your character. The only difference being that if you pick certain type of boot, then you're going to get a different type of geometry. However, there's nothing underneath there. The geometry for the characters is completely segmented. Other than the boots, the gauntlets, and certain pieces that go around the chest area, most of the things that you see in World of Warcraft are just skins, like just painted on top of the geometry of your character, which I thought it was really interesting. Now, I think this is a product of the time and the fact that they want absolutely everyone to play this game, even if you have a potato computer, because geometry like this is super optimized. And you can see it on the orc as well. Everything is painted. This is the orc geometry, and that's just a texture paint. No normal maps, no nothing. That's one of the things that I found very interesting about this game. Now, moving on to the average geometry, you can see that this character is 8,288 triangles, which is pretty low for a character of today. But still, I think it's much higher than WoW used to be. I don't know if you're seeing here, but they all say HD. So from what I've heard, the game was revamped and some of the characters now have much better resolution than the game actually had when they came out. I'm pretty sure at some point they were lower poly. I could not find the really old models, so these are the models that I could find inside the game. So compared to other characters that we've had on this series, this is very low poly. You can see how big the quads are on this guy. However, as with every character that we see, there is a flow to it of how everything is. This is very good to showcase that whenever you have geometry for joints on human characters, you want to reinforce them this way. You don't want to just create one couple of lines and call it a day. This is the best way to do it for deformations, and you're going to see this on every AAA, and in the games that have been successful, you usually see this kind of geometry in the joints. Same thing you can see here on the elbow. It's kind of like this roundish because it helps hold that proportion whenever the character is moving. That being said, there is a little bit more geometry on the face because they open their eyes. I don't know, do they have expressions? I think they have expressions, but they do talk in game as well. So you can see that there's always going to be more geometry on the head than it is on the rest of the body. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the body is segmented into various pieces because those are the pieces that get switched out whenever you switch different armor sets. Except for the shoulders, because the shoulders, from what I've seen, are usually extra floating geometry that is around the character. But same thing with the... You can see actually the ears on this guy are separated. I'm assuming that if you're a blood elf and you wear a helmet, you don't see your ears, so that's probably why. Now, before we move on to looking at the UVs for those characters, I just want to show you something. This is a character that I've been making, and the reason why I brought you here is to show you what hand painted looks like. This is a character that has normal maps and roughness and all that, because you can see that I can move the light here and it's shiny and all that. However, if I go into the color channel, there is no lighting, there is no normal maps, but you can see she still keeps her form. This is just a pure color channel. Now, some people say this is not a hand-painted asset because I have normal maps and I have all the other maps in there. This is for something that I want to make later for the channel. But just wanted to show you that just with the color map, you can have your character have a ton of definition, a ton of volume, and I think it makes for a pretty fun character to look at. I think the mix of the hand-painted with the PBR workflow that we have nowadays, it gives them that, makes them look a little bit better than those mobile characters that you see. I really like this style. So let me know what you think about that kind of art style. But just to illustrate something, the way that I usually go about this is using values. So this folder right here is the one that's building everything. The color is just, you know, all the colors on top of that are dependent on the values folder. So if I were to turn these off, you can see that this is what it is. So it's just, if you add one color to the character, this is what you see. Then I have a bunch of layers that I built on top just to give her volume. And then on top of that volume that I built just on the color channel is where I add all the colors. And this is what you get. All of the rest of the things here are to make it PBR. And this is usually how I would go about making my characters. Should I make a tutorial about this? Let me know in the comments down below if anyone wants to see that. All right, now let's look at the UVs. And here we're just looking at the ones from the orc. As you can see here, the armor is already being drawn on the texture. This is one of those rectangular textures. We've looked at them in other games. Sometimes they're vertical, sometimes they're horizontal. However, one of the things that is interesting is how big the head is in terms of the UVs that are occupying this space. So you can see that there's only one ear, and not because this orc only has one ear. The orc actually has 2 ears. The reason for the one ear is because it is on top of the other one, as you usually do right here. You can see there's only one arm, only one leg. So parts that are symmetry are usually placed on top of each other. One of the things, especially about Blizzard textures, that I like is how things are rectified, and I personally don't see any problems with the seams. I had a discussion with somebody on X the other day who was saying that there is a big problem. If you do this, you're going to have problems with distortion, you're going to have problems with seams. I've seen most of the textures from Blizzard games are rectified this way, meaning they're completely square. Actually, let's grab the arm. The UV is pretty much rectified all the way down to the fingers. So you can see that the fingers are squared off. You can see it right here. All the fingers are squared off. And then these parts are squared off. Of course, the whole UV is not rectified. That would be disastrous and it would create a lot of distortion. But for the most part, I personally like this kind of UVs because it allows you to have a lot more space on your UV maps. If you have UVs that are all over the place, or if your UVs are not rectified, usually you have to fight or play more of a puzzle game whenever you're placing your UV island. When you rectify them this way, it's just much easier for the program to pack it and to give you more UV space. When I was starting out, one of the things that was the most difficult to me as a character artist was making UVs and getting them to look this way. It was a thing that I thought it was very, very hard. But once you know certain tools inside your program, then it's not that hard to achieve. I personally don't know how to do this in Blender. I know how to do it in Max and Maya. But yeah, I know people can do this stuff in Blender. And I think there are even add-ons to getting it to look this way. All right, so before we move on to the heroes, I just want to show you like the shoulders. You can see that this is a different kind of geometry that's on top of the character, but everything else is the skin. Same thing for the helmet. You can see that if I take it off, there is the head of the characters. But when you choose the helmet, of course, it gets the ears and the hair off. But you can see that everything else, it's part of the character's texture. There's not extra geometry, just this thing, just the helmet. All right, so these are some of the heroes that I was able to pull out of the game. And I know this guy from Warcraft 3, and I know her because if you do 3D art, Sylvana is very popular. I don't know who this guy really is. I just Googled famous orc, and this is the person that got out. And while I was looking for Arthas, this guy, I think he is lead from one of the expansions. Let me know in the comment section down below, where is he from? But yeah, he was in the same, closer to the Arthas folder. So let's just get started. So this is Sylvana from Shadowlands. That's how, as you can see here, that's how she is called. And you can see that overall, if we go into the geometry, she is more higher poly than player characters. Makes sense, right? Because there's only one of her on screen, whereas there's a tons. I don't know how many characters can be on screen on WoW, but there are a ton of them, especially on raids. So you can see that when a player character is 6,000, let's say 10,000 with armor pieces that have geometry, you can see Sylvana's almost 20,000. And you can see that there is more definition on her armor set because she does have more geometry. Not everything is painted on her. So not everything is painted on her. You can see like the base of her armor is like the bikini, these straps, the face, everything that's covering her. But everything else is geometry. Like she has a chest piece, she has the gauntlets, and she has a lot like the waist, the boots and everything. She has more geometry on her than your average player character. Now, if we go into Arthas, this is the Lich King form. There's an undead form as well. You can see that he is actually lower poly than Sylvana. And that is because the Lich King expansion, if I'm not mistaken, is much older than Shadowlands. So that's why this character is a little bit lower. But even though he is lower poly than Sylvanas, he still looks great, even with Frostmourne here. And I know Frostmourne from Warcraft 3, because I did play that game and love Warcraft 3. Back in the day, I haven't played the Reforged one. Now, moving on for these two, you can see that this guy has 5,000 triangles, whereas this guy has 10,000. So, I don't know if they are from a much more recent expansion, but they do look a little bit higher poly than Arthas, and their textures are a little bit more defined than Arthas as well. But you can see this is where I think the hand-painted stuff shines. You can see how everything is very well realized, lights and everything on the character, and you can see absolutely everything about this character. I really love this art style, if you haven't told by now. One of the things that's interesting though, when I was looking at this character, is that he looks a lot like Prince Valerian from StarCraft. And that's one of the things that I talked about in that video, how WoW actually influenced the art style on StarCraft 2, because you can see like the proportions for the characters and all that. It's very, very similar, especially when it comes to making the armors and all that. This is something that I want to say, because I know there are some indie developers that do watch my videos, is I don't think things need to be realistic all the time. Look, I understand why AAA corporations want to go the realistic route, but when I've been seeing, and this is because of Unreal Engine 5, a lot of indie developers just go the super realistic route. The problem with going realistic is your players need more resources on their PCs, on their consoles. Therefore, your game is going to have a little bit of a harder time performing well. You can have a cool art style that, from the looks of it, a lot of people like, because even if WoW, from what I heard, WoW is not as famous, it doesn't have as many subscribers as it used to have back in the day, but they still pull millions of players each month. So this art style is appreciated by players. It's something that looks great. It can give your game a little bit more of a unique look. And I know some developers are scared that if they go this stylized route, everyone's going to say, hey, it looks like a mobile game. Well, I'm showing you the way that I think if you do it this way, the way that WoW does it, is going to get away from that look of, hey, it looks like a mobile game, because this is very artistic. And I don't know, maybe because I'm a character artist and that's why I like it so much. But yeah, making these characters is a very artistic process, and it's not as technical as making a realistic one. But going back to this art style, the reason why, if you're an indie, you want to lean more towards this side is because as an indie developer, you don't have hundreds of devs that can help you profile your game and tell you what things you need to change in order for your game to perform at over 60 frames per second. But even if you go the route of using normal map and using PBR, going this route will allow you to have more optimized, not only characters, but environment and props, and your game will be able to work on anything. And you want your players to be as many as possible. If your game can look good and run on a potato, a lot of people are going to want to play it. If your game looks amazing and can only run on a few types of computers, or it runs poorly on console, nobody's going to play it. So whenever you're deciding what art style, if you're an indie, you're deciding what art style you want for your game, make sure that's an art style where you can tackle high frame rate without much trouble, without needing a lot of overhead. If you want to see another WoW video, please let me know in the comment section down below. Share this around so I know that there's interest in this game, and I'll make another video talking about props and other characters. And so don't forget to leave a like. Thank you so much for listening to me all the way to this point, and I'll see you in the next one.